Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Sunday and it's March the 13th, 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets. So you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today takes us to the city of Winston-Salem here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, Death penalty sought for woman who murdered her adopted 5-year-old son. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. And today we're talking about 37-year-old Kimberly Monique Smith of Winston-Salem. She has been charged with first-degree murder in the death of her 5-year-old adopted son. And she's also charged with felony intentional child abuse and inflicting serious bodily injury in connection with another child who was the 6-year-old sibling of the deceased victim. Prosecutors have decided they plan to seek the death penalty in this case. But before we continue, I want to give you advance warning that the contents are pretty gruesome, and if you're a parent, you might find some of it to be offensive. It may make you angry that innocent children had to experience this type of cruel treatment from an adoptive parent, someone who voluntarily consented to be a parent. So please use your own discretion as we move along today's video. And I would like to encourage you to stick with me until the end so I can share with you my personal perspective on this entire situation. And this is what has been reported on this case. On June the 6th of last year at approximately 9:45 p.m., police, along with emergency medical personnel, went to the home of Kimberly Smith in response to a call of an unresponsive child. The police found Smith, and there was also her friend. The friend was performing CPR on 5-year-old Kendall Smith, who was Kimberly Smith's adoptive 5-year-old son. The young child could not be stabilized at the scene, and the decision was made that he needed to be transported immediately to the nearby hospital for more definitive care. Now, the charging report obtained by one of the news agencies covering the case indicated that while in transit to the hospital, an officer who accompanied the child noticed that the 5-year-old had suffered extensive bruising on his body. He also had an abrasion on the tip of his penis and a laceration on his scrotum. Some type of trauma had happened to the child's genitals. Both his penis and his scrotum had been hurt in some way. But how did that happen? We'll get back to that in a few minutes. But nonetheless, when they arrived at the hospital, doctors attempted to resuscitate the child, but they were unsuccessful. 5-year-old Kendall Smith was pronounced dead later that day. So when questioned about the child's injuries, investigators said Smith's story changed multiple times. Per the affidavit, the mother first said she was holding the 5-year-old when she tripped over the other child in the home and she accidentally dropped the 5-year-old on his head. She said she dropped him on his head and that he cried out and then he went limp. But 2 days later, she changed her story, this time saying she had nothing at all to do with the child's injuries, telling officers the 5-year-old was clumsy and fell while running. So I wonder how he got bruises all over his body. But investigators knew she was not telling the truth. There's no way that child fell on his head and caused those bruises all over his body. The type of injuries they found on that child could not be sustained in a fall. And as a result, Kimberly Smith was taken into custody that day on charges of suspected child abuse. Now, there was another child in the home, his 6-year-old. He told a social worker that he saw his mother beat the deceased child with a wooden yardstick, then with a cord from a phone charger, and finally with a belt. In fact, she often beat both of them that way. But he stated earlier in the day he saw his mom beating his younger brother. The child also said that their mother often flicked both him and his brother's genitals as punishments for wetting the bed. So that's how the poor baby had marks on the tip of his penis and on his scrotum. That was the result of cruel punishment he suffered for wetting the bed. She'd burn him on his penis. She'd flick him on his penis. That's what that mother was doing to that child because he wet the bed. That's a damn shame. Now, I'm sure it took several weeks for the autopsy report to come back, and the autopsy poked a lot of holes into Kimberly Smith's story. It was determined that the child's death was by homicide. The autopsy revealed the 5-year-old died as a result of blunt force trauma to the back of the head, which caused the brain to swell and led to a lack of oxygen. The pathologist also found unique marks that were up and down the child's back, and there were cuts and bruises that were made by some type of object. Police say the marks up and down the back of the child's back matched a belt buckle they found in the home, but that was not all the evidence they found. It was reported the investigators analyzed masking tape they removed from the home, and they determined the tape was placed over the child's mouth and wrapped around the head and neck twice to keep the mouth shut. Oh my God, I know this woman had to be crazy. You have a 5-year-old and she's taking masking tape and wrapping it around the child's mouth and around the child's neck, and it probably was tight as hell. And who knows, she probably wrapped it around the child's nose as well. That was one angry woman. It seems as if she was trying to kill that child. And as I already mentioned, first she said she was holding the child when she tripped over another child and she dropped the 5-year-old on the head. Then she retracted that statement and said the boy injury was a result of being clumsy. So he fell a lot and that's how he sustained those injuries. But blunt force trauma to the back of the head, we all know that's impossible. But when investigators looked at all the evidence to include the autopsy finding, Kimberly finally decided to come clean. She finally decided to admit that she had not been truthful with her answers. Okay? She admitted she had taped the child's mouth shut to keep him from screaming and that she had hit him with a charger cord and a yardstick. Smith also admitted she was making the little boy run suicide drills in his room as a punishment because he drank after 5 p.m. 5-year-old now. And in case you're wondering what suicide drills are, that's when you have someone, or specifically an adult in training, you have them run very fast over a certain distance and they're doing it over and over and over again. Trust me, this is not in any type of parental magazine. And the 5-year-old, she said the 5-year-old was doing suicide drills when he collapsed. And when she realized the child was in distress, she did not seek out medical attention to that child. She placed that child in a bathtub for 30 minutes trying to wake him up. Now, she said 30 minutes. It probably could have been a couple hours. Trust me, it was a hell of a lot longer. And when that was not working, she probably realized the child was already dead. But she called her friend over, and it was that friend who called 911, and that's the person that police found doing CPR when they arrived on the scene. That BITCA. And it was not only the deceased child who was severely abused by that adopted mother. The other child in the house, that 6-year-old sibling who told the social worker what he had seen and experienced, he also had visible signs of trauma on his body. The reports say he had several fresh and healing wounds on his back, chest, and legs, along with a healing rib fracture and a healing upper arm fracture. Damn, she was cruel. This child had 2 different fractures that were in the different stages of healing. I wonder if she ever took him to the emergency room. I wonder if she even sought any type of medical attention for him. And the truth is, she probably did not, because there's just no way to me that anybody in the emergency room would have looked at him, completed an examination, and if they saw those bruises, they would have contacted social services as a precaution. If someone had examined him, they would have seen the bruises all over his body. I can't understand how this progressed to this point and nobody knew. She probably kept him isolated from everyone else too. So Kimberly Smith was charged with, and she was indicted on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of a 5-year-old adopted son and felony intentional child abuse, inflicting serious bodily injury on the other child in the home, the 6-year-old, and she remains in the Forsyth County Jail with no bond. on the murder charge. The officer from the Winston-Salem Police Department who responded to the home, he told the media this was the worst case of child abuse he had seen in 16 years. And ironically, they searched her computer and she had been looking for funeral homes that did cremations. So I'm glad that she was arrested before she had a chance to cremate this child and probably destroy. Maybe she was trying to destroy some possible evidence on the body as well. Prosecutors say the things that she is accused of doing to those two little boys are atrocious and cruel and heinous, and that they stated that her actions met the criteria for the death penalty under North Carolina law, so they are seeking the death penalty in this case. Good for her. She deserves it. And Smith is being represented by a public defender attorney, and a judge recently ordered that she be assigned a second attorney because it's either a law or it's just a requirement that when you have a death penalty case, she has to have two lawyers. But I say, why should she be given two lawyers at taxpayer expense? Well, the true reason is that she can't afford a lawyer of her own. But I say, let her go ahead and defend her own darn self, just like Tiffany Moss did. The sooner she gets to the death chamber, the better it is for all of us. So when we look at this entire case, it's not just the evil stepmother as we have stereotyped for decades. Here you have an adopted mother of two young boys aged 5 and 6, and these two boys, their lives were pure hell. Their young lives were pure hell. She beat them mercilessly, leaving bruises all over their little bodies. She used a belt, she used a yardstick, and she used a phone charger cord to beat them. She flicked their little penises because they went to bed, and that left scars. One child, the one who died, had marks not only on his penis, but his scrotum as well. She deprived them of nutrients. The 5-year-old was made to run suicide drills in his room because he drank something after 5 p.m. He probably had to steal it to drink it. He probably had to steal it to drink it. God only knows how long those suicide drills lasted. And on top of that, she used masking tape to tape it around the mouth and neck twice of that child so that he would stop screaming. And to do something like that, she was probably so pissed off, and in her anger, she wrapped it so down tight it probably covered the child's nose as well, cutting off his supply of oxygen. Only a monster would do something like that to a 5-year-old child. Now, the other child, the 6-year-old, not only did he have bruises all over his body, he had fractures that were in various stages of healing. One fractured rib and one fractured forearm. Those two little boys were living in hell, and they did not deserve any of this. She was not their natural parent. These were adopted children, and adoption is a choice. If she did not want them, she should have given them back, or just given them to somebody who would have loved them and given them a fair chance in life. If this had gone in any longer, she probably would have killed both of these children. And what has happened makes me mad as hell. There are very few times in my adult life when I have actually been at a loss for words, and I had to tell you this is one of those times. And I had to go back and redo the ending of this video because I realized it would have been disturbing to some of my subscribers. So I went back and I edited some bit. But Kimberly Smith, you're probably one of the most hated women in America right now, and you deserve to die. You deserve the death penalty. And to be honest, I hope you don't live to see that trial date. I hope you do get your karma in prison, and I hope it comes soon, and I hope it's just as gruesome as what you did to your adopted sons. I hope someone would put tape around your mouth and neck and wrap it twice, just like you did to that little 5-year-old boy. I hope they find a way to access a lighter fluid and flicker your CLITORIS the same way you flickered the little penises of those little two boys, or those two little boys rather, and left them with scars on your penises. I hope the same thing happened to you. And then I hope you beaten over and over and over again. You deserve no mercy. And if you're fortunate enough to survive all of that, I pray the death penalty is the next thing that awaits you. So do us all a favor. Go ahead and plead guilty and get this out of the way. Let's not waste taxpayers' money on a trial. And I have to admit that just about now I am emotionally drained. But that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And of course, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on this notification bell right here, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.